Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. Mr. B. Rhett, we are embarking on episode number 15.
Each time you say this, it baffles me that
we've gotten so many in the can.
Well,
I also wanted to let you know that we have a website.
Oh!
Yeah, the glumlotpodcast.com.
Man.
We have an email, theglumlotpodcast@gmail.com.
That I knew.
We have a Facebook group, the Glum Lot Podcast Group. Please join it. We always need new members. And with that in mind, what's on your mind today?
Well, when will we have the box seats and stuff like that for
the box seats at the Dodgers game?
Yeah.
That's a ways off.
We've got box seats, I'll say.
All right, because we sit on boxes. That's basically it.
At some point we have, probably.
So.
Yeah. When I first came in here, I remember sitting there feeling very, very alone.
Yes.
Feeling very ashamed, basically feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. And I heard that I think a lot of people never felt comfortable in their own skin.
Right. That's what alcohol helped with.
Yeah.
For a while. That's what helped. When I was growing up and I was a teenager, I never felt comfortable in my own skin. But after I took the first couple good drinks in my life and that warmth spread throughout me and all my nerve endings relaxed, I felt comfortable in my own skin. And from that day forward, I decided I was going to make this a way of life because this is what it felt like to be normal, I thought.
Right.
And I'm like, holy shit. This is why people drink. This is why I'm going to drink. The problem is it's a progressive disease, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And over the years, you just don't make any progress in anything in your life, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. And it becomes very lonely and dark and the exact opposite of what you wanted.
And that's exactly what it was for me.
Yeah, and that's why, for me, putting down the drink was not nearly enough to live what I would call a sober life with any serenity. So I had to revamp my entire way of thinking and acting, but I didn't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the fellowship and the steps and the sponsor came in. And it was a process. It wasn't like there was no magic wand. There was no magic pill. It was a process that I had to stop and fail and start and come back and talk about and feel bad about and feel good about. I mean, all the range of everything you can feel, think, and experience happens in early sobriety. And the thing is, you start to, not only do you start to feel certain touches of peace and serenity, but you see it in other people. Mm-hmm. And it becomes, in your mind, achievable, and you gain a sense of hope. And if you keep coming back, you get it.
Man.
You do get it. It's not 100%.
No.
But it certainly is. It certainly lets you lead a good life.
But you're right. I look back and I remember that sense of ease and comfort that I got, right, just by taking those first few drinks. And as I progressed in the program, I realized that I was starting without alcohol, starting to feel comfortable in my own skin. And that is a direct result of people supporting me through that because I didn't have alcohol anymore.
That's right.
And B, working the 12 steps of AA, right? Growing and, like you said, failing and, sometimes exploring those uncomfortable things. But right now, I've got that serenity, most of the time, I'm not.
It's an ongoing process of work.
Yes,
It really is. And it's not like work like, oh, God, I got to do this again. It's a joyful work, because now we know we're headed in the right direction.
Right.
We're going to stay on the path.
And now that I work with other alcoholics, I have a feeling of like goodness as well on top of that.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was uncomfortable in my own skin, I never felt good enough. When I was drinking, and towards the end, I was definitely just feeling that I didn't even belong in this world. And now, not only am I comfortable in my own skin, I am comfortable in feeling good.
Good. We're not a glum lot.
What?
We're not a glum lot. And with that, I want to tell an AA joke I heard,
Oh, please.
if you don't mind.
Oh, this, okay.
Okay, here we go. A doctor goes into a group of alcoholics and announces that they discovered a cure. And the doctor says, all you need to do is take one pill and you'll be cured forever. And the AA room goes silent until one person says, well, what happens if you take two?
Of course.
'Cause that is the way we operate. That is the way our minds work.
It sure is, man.
Yeah.
One is too many and 100 is never enough, right?
That's right. And so with that, we have a great guest with us today.
Mm-hmm.
He is a
Understatement.
man of wisdom.
Big time.
Yep. I hear this guy. When this guy speaks, I listen.
It is deep.
Yep. So we'd like to welcome him here to the Glum Lot community. Welcome, Rob.
Rob.
Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys.
And
Good to be here.
it will start out as we usually do. We'll ask your sobriety date.
Okay, so I thought that was coming, give or take 2 days. It is
Okay.
December 9th, 1989.
Okay.
I just didn't anticipate on actually
Getting
sticking
sober?
around, so I didn't keep
You
track
didn't
of
nail
stuff
down that date.
early on, yeah.
Wow. So that means you were 7 years old when you came in the rooms, because that just shocked me. I had no idea you had that much sobriety. And,
Nope,
and
I
you
was-
look damn good. Anyways, just saying.
It
That's
was
weird.
2 months before my 21st birthday.
Wow.
I've
Jeez.
never legally had a drink of alcohol in my entire life.
I've never heard that before. That's
Yep.
pretty damn
Not once.
amazing.
Not once.
Let's rewind to the beginning. So, what was your first experience with alcohol?
My first experience with alcohol was a few years after my dad had passed away, and he left some booze down in the basement.
Now, how old were you at the time?
I was just under 14,
Okay.
and it was slow gin.
Oh man.
So it was like, and it was old, nasty, slow gin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So-
more of a mixer, right?
Yeah. Yep. It was like syrup when it was coming out.
Oh man. Oh.
And mine was peach schnapps.
Oh damn.
It was so crusty around the lid from the dried sugar. It was so old.
You guys
so,
are bad. Mine
Wow.
was just beer. Come on. Have some class. Go
guess-
ahead.
Well, I was 14 years old, and I waited as long as I possibly could. you
Yeah.
know, so-
Yeah. so how was your slow gin?
It was nasty. I didn't drink enough to have any effect. I just knew that I don't know. I just wasn't right. I was always like a little bit sneaky. I was always just a little off.
And we
You know?
talk about that as part of the allure when we're in our teens. Part of the allure of drinking is you feel like you're becoming an adult, and doing something wrong has a certain draw. You know what I mean? Doing something sneaky, there's a certain
It's the endorphins going, the adrenaline going.
it's just it draws us, and so that was your experience, obviously. right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so-
I was a troublemaker when I didn't need to be.
Yep. And so what happened from there?
So I actually started like real drinking when I had a crush on a girl in high school, and I didn't know how to get to where she was. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have anybody to drive me. So she gave me a contact for a dude that was older and had a driver's license, and he hooked me up, or she hooked me up with this guy, and he gave me a ride out there so that I could hang out with her, and it just introduced me to hanging out with a group of older people.
Who
You
did
know?
have access to alcohol.
who did have access to alcohol. Yes, that's correct, and recreational.
Man, you must have been
pharmaceuticals.
pretty something for her to send a driver for you. I mean, wow.
I don't know about all that. He just might have had the same motive or agenda that I had. But,
Wow.
But yeah, I never actually even got to date her either.
Oh,
So
boy.
it didn't work.
But so what was this exposure to drugs and alcohol? What was the story with it?
Well, what happened is he gave me a ride out there, and he just hung with me that night. And then he said that I could hang out. And then I got around a group of people, and they were drinking, and they were smoking weed. And so I just started. And as soon as I, weed was more appealing, honestly, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Except for I couldn't handle it. I would always smoke it and then just pass out.
Oh.
So they started picking on me.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. But I'll get it right the next time.
Yeah,
right.
Let me work on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're half measures, right?
But did it give you a feeling that you liked?
It gave me it fixed everything that I didn't even know was wrong with me.
Was it similar with the alcohol? Was there anything different or more appealing to the alcohol, other than you just didn't pass out, right away?
So both of them were just wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could say that I had some sort of, horrible reaction to it, but I didn't. It just, I guess I did have an abnormal reaction to it because it fixed everything that was wrong with me. I was bigger, stronger, faster, cuter, everything. It just...
Did you have an urge to get more?
Almost instantaneously.
Yeah, that's usually part of the marker, is we don't want to have a couple drinks and then quit. We just want to keep going.
Chasing the feeling.
Yep.
Yeah. And saying, geez, if 2 is good, 4 must be great.
Absolutely.
6 is going to be incredible.
The muscles get way bigger.
If 2's good, 3's better.
Yep.
If 3's good, 4's better.
And that's what happened to you?
Without a doubt.
Were there consequences early on?
There were... ignoring. So my dad passed away when I was 10 and a half years old. Mm-hmm. So there was, and he was a drunk. So I walked on eggshells a lot when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So after he passed, that was kind of gone. So now I only had to answer to my mother, and I would just steamrolled her. So I would... the consequences weren't like court or law or anything like that, but it would just be tension at home because she'd tell me that I can't go out, and I literally would just defy her.
Yeah,
kind of repeating the dad stuff?
Maybe repeating the dad stuff.
Taking over?
No, just I just wasn't scared anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother, and I had an older sister. My older sister passed pretty early in sobriety, and I still have the older half brother, but he's not real well adjusted.
Yeah.
So,
did they give you any shit for your behavior back then, or no?
Nope. I mean, my sister was doing her own thing, but it just never grabbed her the way that it grabbed me.
So you're basically living your own life at this point. Then you're doing what you want to do.
Yep. Which
Probably paying attention to authority just enough to stay there, right?
If I didn't have to pay attention to authority, that would be the better plan.
Yeah.
I almost instantaneously started skipping school. Time was then spent on a nature trail, partying whenever I could, just ignoring going to school altogether. Some of the guys that I were hanging out with, I was 14 and they were already in their early 20s. So
you're running with a older, more mature crowd.
I would say older for sure.
But maybe not
more mature? That's debatable. Because, what could they possibly see with like a 14 and 15-year-old kid?
It's probably a fun guy to hang out with, and they probably got some sense of accomplishment by taking you in and showing you their ways,
molding me.
Yes,
there you
molding
go.
you. But so they had alcohol and dope, right?
Yes.
And so that was your access point.
Yep.
But And so it is a progressive disease. Talk about the progression.
So it was maybe only a few years into that where because I wasn't really good holding down a job, I would start stealing in order to support being able to have fun.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, you start getting tiny little charges. I was a horrible criminal because I had a conscience.
Boy, that's a bad mix.
So, there was a time when I was a dishwasher for a little while at a restaurant, and I stole a couple cases of beer. And the very next day, the manager said, if somebody doesn't own up to this, we're going to fire the entire shift. Everybody, just laterally across the board. So, I copped to it so that other people didn't have to get fired. So I had to give the rest, the beer, like half of it back that wasn't drank. And then I got fired.
Yeah.
So I started experiencing little consequences and then picking up small charges of petty larceny or just small bumps in the road, but enough to get me on probation.
I was going to say, so you went to court, you went to probation.
Yep.
Did they talk about alcohol or drug use during this time with you?
Yes. So as a part of probation, I was supposed to abstain from anything like that. They also put in place what was called like a PINS action, which is parents in need of supervision or
people in
something
need
like
of supervision. Yeah.
So I did that, and I couldn't even stop then.
But you're just a kid at this point.
I'm a kid. I mean, by this time, I'm probably between maybe 16 and 17 years old.
Okay. All right.
And there were a lot of times where you'd go to probation and they would want you to, you're going to pee in the cup.
Yep.
And I just would be like, I can't.
Right. I'll tell you right now. Don't even waste your.
It's glowing.
I knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
So.
Are you in school at this time?
I mean, I'm technically in school.
You're enrolled.
But I'm not. I'm enrolled in school, but I am not in attendance.
Yes.
I'm not.
Okay.
Like.
Was that a problem too with the truancy or? Once you're 16, you can.
I quit.
Yeah, you basically quit. Yeah.
I quit.
I didn't
school.
quit. I just stopped going.
Right. Which at some point they interpreted it as me.
You've resigned.
Yeah, I'm not doing it anymore.
So you're on probation. And you're failing.
And I've failed.
Yeah.
I've literally left.
So what are the consequences of that?
So because I couldn't hold up my end of the deal, that is when they started threatening me early on with treatment. If I've got alcohol and drug problems and won't follow the guidelines, then they wanted to institutionalize me. So on December of, I was 17 years old, and it was like, no, it wasn't December. It was February 20th, 1987, I think. I went to my first treatment facility, and it was just for young men between the ages of 16 and 23.
And is this a rehab?
It's a rehab.
Okay.
And it was called the Credo Foundation, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say stuff like that.
Yeah, why not? It's part of your story.
I went to the Credo Foundation, and it was a farm, and we raised animals, and we grew food, and we made maple syrup, and then they did all the therapy type stuff.
Very structured.
Group session, almost militant.
Yeah.
Was there any 12-step, any of that in the program?
We did like the daily meditations and 24-hour-a-day book, but actually like leaning on the big book, I have no recollection of that. Okay. I can't say for sure that it wasn't there.
Maybe you just missed it.
A lot of us kind of tuned out our first time reading.
So So what was the results of your experience?
I had a horrible experience in that treatment facility. For 7 months, I didn't even have visitation because they kept asking me what was wrong with me, and I honestly was like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they were asking for. I didn't know how to explain anything about me. I mean, how self-aware is someone who's 17 years old? So I struggled, and it wasn't until there was another client in there who did not talk very much, and he was going through something pretty horrible. His sister had gotten sexually assaulted, and he was going to leave to go defend her, to go stick up for her. And it was a group session where they were trying to talk him out of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just liked him, his heart, I don't know what it was, but in that group session, I got pissed because everybody was shuffling and moving around, and they weren't really paying attention. It was a pretty intense
Right. There was
group
something
session.
in that guy's story that you really identified with.
He was going to be a hero. He was going to
touched
avenge
you
his sister,
deeply.
Yeah, he was kind of like a stoic dude.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a lot of words, and he just had something that I didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that he helped me get in touch with it, because me sticking up for him, I yelled at the entire group, and I yelled at the counselors, and it was just the first time that I ever really
Right. You
used my voice.
participated.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy draws you out to participate.
Yep.
And does this loosen you up for your story?
So I still didn't know how to really talk about me yet.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been the very beginning of it. But I thought I was going to get in a lot of trouble because, I blasted everybody in the group. I yelled at the counselors. And then later on, one of the counselors called me to the office.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I don't know what happened today, but that was the first time that we actually saw you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it. And, I started to make some progress, and I started to practice trying to use my voice. But most of the time early on, I was just dominated by a bunch of fear, and I didn't even know how to name it. Just scared all the time. Scared with my dad growing up, and then scared with authority at school, so I'd avoid that, and then go into treatment, and I'm scared there for the counselors, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
A lot of people telling you what to do.
Everybody telling me what to do, and I
Right. And you're
want
lost.
none of it. But my spirit absolutely knows. Like I don't care. I don't want to listen to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a year-long treatment, and I finished it.
So besides that one turning point, did anything change in you?
I started, after being able to be mad and not getting in trouble for it, I started to use my voice more.
Oh, okay.
So I started to gain a little bit of confidence. I started to think that my opinions, like the intuition, the observances that I would make on different stuff, maybe it was pertinent. Looking at the guy and being like, you're full of shit.
Yeah. So
Or-
you were validated to some degree.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah. And so you get out of that thing after a year, which is a long time, especially in the life of a 17-year-old.
A long
A year
time.
is a long time,
A
especially
long
on the
time.
chain gang.
Yep.
At the farm.
And so you get out of there. Where do you go?
Well, I was going to go to their halfway house, and I went there for 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home on a visit, and I met this girl named Patty, and she was pretty cute, and I liked her. And I went back up, and I said, that I had hung out with this girl, and they just cornered me, tried to tell me how it was awful. And
You didn't feel awful? I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
right, it was wonderful, and they said I couldn't go home anymore. And I said, I'm out.
Yep. And you had the ability at that time to actually just walk away, right?
Yep.
Okay. Are you still on probation?
Yep.
Okay. So you still got to report to that,
Yep.
but you're done with a halfway house.
Done with a halfway house.
You go back home. Do you start drinking and smoking dope again?
about 30 days later.
Yeah. Okay. So you stayed clean for 30 days.
Yep.
What made you go back? Do you remember?
I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and he had a bottle of vodka and some weed. And
Got a case of the fuckets?
oh man, I don't even know what led up to it. I don't know
Just
what
happens.
I don't know what the thinking was that preceded that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just know that what I remember the most about it is that I was getting ready to put the pipe in my mouth, and in my head I said, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I must have whispered it or murmured it out because the guy that I was with said, "What are friends for?"
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's your old friend Addiction putting his arm around you. What are friends
Boy,
for,
is
buddy?
that true. Holy
So
crap.
you start drinking, you start smoking again. Where does it go from there?
Just all the kinds of debauchery that
You would think
a
of.
late teen, So it wasn't. I never really built up a life that I needed to tear down, or that your addiction tears down.
Right. There wasn't a lot of there.
I was too young. I didn't
too-
build
yeah.
anything to wreck, but inside I now have, how they say that there's nothing worse than a head full of AA and a
Belly
belly
full.
full
Oh,
of
God,
booze.
yes. Yeah.
So now anytime that I'm partying, which is still as often as I possibly can, anytime that I don't get screwed up enough to go home and pass out, that recovery voice is
Right.
kicking around in my head,
Yeah.
So
doing a number on me.
So you're telling me hard labor, superstructure, and everybody telling you what to do didn't work?
Not at all.
Yeah, just curious. Just curious.
That makes a lot of sense.
I kind
to
of
me.
experienced
Okay.
that
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Hell yeah. So you're in this position and you're kind of beating yourself up at the same time. You know the truth, but you're still smoking and drinking. Any other drugs?
Acid, mushrooms,
Okay.
some cocaine.
And-
I dabbled.
Yeah. But you're not working?
On and off working.
Yeah.
Nothing that would be career oriented.
Yeah. So
It
you've
was
got this
just
very
jobs.
loose life,
Yep.
right? And you're living at home?
And my mom would not kick me out.
Ah,
Yep.
She loves her boy.
Yep.
Yep. And just want to make sure you're safe, probably, right?
Her little Bobby,
Yeah.
And I might need some adjustments, but I don't have the problems that everybody says that I have. My mom kind
Right.
of enabled me a bit.
But at some point, something changed.
I wound up getting a DWI.
Okay. Are you 21 yet at this point?
Nope. No, I think, let me, if I do the timeline, I was either just under 20. Yeah, that's what I would say is I was probably just before my 20th birthday. And I wound up rolling a car, and it didn't end up on its wheels. So I got out of it, and I just sat on the curb, and I waited for the cops to come.
And at this point, if I recall, the drinking age is 21,
Yes.
right? Okay. So the cops come, what happens?
The cop looked at me and he said, "Have you been drinking?" And I looked at the car, and the car wasn't on its wheels anymore. It was on its door.
I think my car has.
And
Look at that thing. Son of a bitch.
and I just went, yeah, I've been drinking. So
Yeah.
he brought me back to the station. He processed me, and he brought me home. And it was probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when I got home. And I was dating a girl named Michelle. And in the morning, woke up pretty early, got back out to Michelle's house, and there were still cold beers in the cooler chest. And I
had to calm your nerves from all that.
drank, yeah. But I did swear off the night before.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
well,
And you meant it.
I did mean it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
you meant it.
this is the thing that I think that really gets underplayed in the recovery rooms is that people drink again, and a lot of people will say, "Well, you wanted to."
Oh.
And it infuriates me because maybe sometimes you want to, but there's a whole bunch of times where I know that I did not want to do it. I knew that I had obligations that I wanted to try to meet, and I couldn't pull off.
You know,
not
I
doing
always
it.
say that there are so many times that I've gotten up in the morning back when I was drinking and said, today is the day I'm not going to drink no matter what. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to come home from work. I'm not going to drink today. And if you had given me a lie detector test, I would have passed it because I 100% meant it. And by 4 or 5 o'clock on my drive home, it was almost like I would just zombie-like steer to the bar for happy hour to just have one drink. And I meant that too. I'm just going to have one. I'm just going to have one. And then a second one, and the third one.
And you probably
the fourth.
told yourself a few times during that.
And you
too.
know what? Some of that is, the denial working, but the other part of it is that compulsion. There was no defense. There was just no defense.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that I didn't mean that with all my heart. It just means that I had no defense against the alcohol. I just didn't have it, and that's why I needed to get help. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you start feeling better, like between 12 and 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
the
Justification comes.
the hangover from the night before is rolling away, and the premeditation about going and grabbing some drinks or some other recreational stuff after work.
Is gaining percentage.
Gaining momentum.
Yeah,
man.
it starts out at 1%, just that one thought, and by the time you roll around an hour later, you're at 86%.
I don't have any other thought.
Yeah.
Like, all I can think of is being consumed with the idea of how good it's going to be to drink again.
Yeah.
So can you pinpoint the situation that said, I am done? Can you pinpoint it? Do you know what it was? What was the turning point?
I didn't actually have one.
Really?
I really didn't. I wound up getting after that DWI, I had to do an alcohol evaluation, and in the evaluation, I didn't want to tell him the truth about my drinking, but I also didn't want to radically lie about my drinking. So I really did. I put a lot of calculated effort into trying to figure out what a normal amount of consumption would actually look like. And I said that I had 3 or 4 drinks, maybe 4 or 5 nights a week. And that seemed
That seemed okay.
that
to you.
seems
normal.
completely reasonable.
Yeah.
So I did that, and she said, maybe you need some outpatient counseling, and I'll talk to the judge about that. And then when I got in front of the judge said that your counselor wants you to do inpatient treatment.
Okay.
And I just thought, that lying bitch.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I think she met you lie for lie, didn't she?
Yeah.
And you know what? I wonder if she's like, Jesus Christ, every fucking alcoholic that comes
Balls
in here
for it.
says the same goddamn thing. It reminds me of when people get stopped by the cops drunk, because I got a couple brother-in-laws that are cops. People always say the same thing. Have you been drinking tonight? 2 beers. Everybody says 2
yeah.
beers.
1 or 2.
2 beers. And then you're like, okay, so you're going to fail the test.
Yep.
2 beers. I had 2 beers, and I had 2 more, then I had 2 more, then I had 2 more. I had 2 beers too many.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing. We always try to calculate that. What's going to sound normal?
What's going to sound reasonable?
Yeah.
And what lie can I tell to not get in trouble?
So now you go to another rehab.
I go to the Willows.
Okay. And how do you feel at this point? Are you thinking, I really need this?
I was really thinking, I did a year-long treatment. This is going to be 30 days. I'm going to do this standing on my head.
Yeah, it's a breeze.
And I'm going to be running with the guys again.
Yeah.
And inside that treatment facility, there were some sane thoughts. I just thought, why don't you give this a shot?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I try? And there were tons of drunken escapades, but we all know it's just the repetition of the same thing happening over and over.
So for the first time, maturity slipping in a little bit.
Or grace. I don't know which one it is. I'd like to lean with grace.
Yeah.
Because I just thought there's really no harm in trying this. And then at the time I had really long hair, and there was a cook So in the first rehab that I went to, they said you can't get sober with long hair. You can't listen to the same music that you used to listen to. Basically, this idea that we're going to change people, places, and things. Change everything about you, and you become a different person. But that doesn't change the way that I think.
Become just like everybody else in the normal world, and you'll be fine.
It's like what they do in basic training.
Yeah,
They make you all the same, break you down, and build you back up. But definitely not going to change the way you think.
Yeah. No, I mean, and they try to do that. They try to get you to think disciplined and do all this stuff, but none of that was really working, and I didn't want to conform again, so I approached this cook, and he had long hair too. And I said, I know this is going to sound like a stupid question, but can you stay sober with long hair? And he said, he turned around, he grabbed his ponytail, and he goes, I've been sober 2 years.
No shit.
And I was like, right on.
Yeah, right.
And then that was the first contact that I made in AA, and I didn't actually know that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I get out of the treatment facility. In that treatment facility, there was a counselor that his name was Dick C. And he said that if you're alcoholic, you suffer from a physical allergy to alcohol coupled with a mental obsession.
Yeah.
And that, it sounded scientific.
Sure.
And I'm like a math science dude, not English lit. I'm math science. And it sounded...
factual, right?
Yeah.
It's like a good analysis.
It got me curious.
Yeah, now this makes sense.
I didn't even know what it meant.
Yeah,
But it sounded good enough that there was a little hook to it. I got curious about that idea.
Did you read the doctor's opinion at that time or anything like that?
Nope.
You get not into the big book at all?
Nope.
Are you attending?
Not at all.
Are you attending meetings in the treatment center? Are they
anything that they force you to do?
Yeah. So
But,
if you had to do something, you did it.
Yep. Nothing voluntarily. But after leaving that treatment facility, like I was there just long enough that I had a little bit of fear about getting out again because I had the memory of only lasting 30 days out of that previous treatment.
Right. And so are you thinking, I really don't want to do that again?
I was thinking it would be 6 to 12 times a day that I would flip-flop back and forth like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
I want to give this a try. No way I'm not going to do it. I want to give this a try. Not a chance.
Right. Yeah.
And they always said that, how many people visited you in rehab? I had like 8 or 10 people that I used to party with visit me in rehab. There was one time in the treatment facility that they brought me weed, and I didn't take it. Like I said I don't want to do this. I might give this a shot.
Yeah. So something's changing, right? Slowly, imperceptibly, there's a crack, and light is coming through.
I don't know where it's coming from, and I don't know how it's getting there. I don't know anything about anything other than I was starting to entertain and be curious about this idea of maybe I'll give this a shot. And then when I left that treatment facility, they said go to a meeting, and I went to a meeting, and it was the 5:15 at Fellowship Hall, and the cook was at that meeting.
Oh, no kidding! Wow.
So he had a girlfriend at the time, and a couple of his friends were already there. And unbeknownst to me, he just said, whenever you see that guy, get him.
Okay.
Yeah. And so every time that I went there, they would invite me out for coffee. They would invite me to go to movies. They would invite me over for game board night or cards, and no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. I'd talk to him a little bit, The meeting was at 5:15. You had from 5:15 to 6:15, and then I'm out. I'm just going to go live my regular life. And he just he was relentless. He just kept trying.
Thank God.
And then I went to a party, and I wound up around a ton of people partying and smoking weed, and a bag of weed was thrown my way, and they asked me to roll a bunch of joints. So I'm rolling joints, and I'm cleaning weed, and
now
I'm in recovery.
But yeah, I was going to say, so at this point, are you like, what am I doing?
Not then. Right then, I wanted to roll a really good joint.
Okay.
I wanted to impress them.
Yeah, of course.
I still got it. And but a couple of days later, I would be just absolutely squirrely as shit. And like I just felt like my skin
So
was
just
on
just to
inside
be
out.
clear, you rolled the joints, but you didn't smoke any of it?
I didn't smoke any.
Oh, that's
Nope.
yeah, wow.
Nope. I
But being around it can't have been fun. It really.
no, it wasn't.
It's like
And
the hell of drinking, the hell of not drinking, right? I mean,
so I didn't feel like I fit in AA, but I no longer felt like I fit there either.
yeah,
So I really did.
you're in purgatory.
I'm in purgatory.
Yep.
So I'm going to be a bit selfish because, I know something for sure. And that is the fact that you have inspired many, many people in the program, whether you feel you have or not. I am for one of those. And so, with the remaining time that we have, I want to know, what was it that got you where you are with it? You have so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so much passion for the truth of the program too. And so I really like to hear about that a little bit, if you don't mind. I'm sorry to skip you right up
Nope,
there, but
nope, that's
that's
fine.
really important
right,
to
let
me.
me just cover this one thing for. So, at what point did you say, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm in? Did something click? Was it a slow burn?
It was walking around with untreated alcoholism long enough that I got incredibly thirsty again. It was time to drink.
Okay. So you stood at the turning point.
I stood at a turning point.
Yeah.
Yep, and it really was the hell of not drinking.
Okay.
So I felt like my skin was on inside out, and everybody had salt shakers, and just restless, irritable, discontent.
You'd
just
had
like
enough
the
pain.
book says. I just knew that there were some people, like there was One-Legged Louie. He was one of the kindest men that I'd ever met, and he always was joyful, not just happy. Like he had this mystical joy about him, and he was sober. So I went to my friend Gary and I said, if I don't get the spiritual part of this thing that you guys are all talking about, I'm a dead man, and I know it.
Yeah.
And that day was the turning point for me.
Clearly.
Awesome.
And he said, he pointed me to a dude and he said, go talk to that guy right there. And I went over and I said the same thing to him, and I was sobbing. And he walked over to the literature table and he grabbed a big book and he came back and he did not wait. He did not say on Tuesday we'll meet at 7:30. He sat down in a side room with me that very day, opened the book up to where it says, right in the very beginning, this is the story of how, 100 women seem to have recovered. And he said, recovered.
That's right.
And then he just kept nailing that home. So he became the catalyst for me to finally submit to this deal and to do what he told me to do.
Nice. And so getting back to Brett's point, obviously you have a commitment to the program and it's a way of life for you that has developed over many years. And Brett, go ahead and just...
there's just something that I don't know what it is, but something had to inspire you.
Desperation, man. Pain. But so God gave me, one of the gifts that I think that I have is that when I know how to use words, I know how to talk to people or to be specific. And I also have a heart. So I didn't even realize till later on. But as soon as I had my first experience with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, so I was sober 13 months before I got desperate and asked him to help me. And then from that point, it was 9 weeks later, and I dragged my ass. But 9 weeks later, I was already in the amends. So I had done the steps and was starting to try to make things right with the world. And the change in me was so miraculous and I don't take credit for it. So it was so wonderful.
Shocking.
The prickliness was gone. I
So
felt
it was
grounded.
It was a profound
It was
change.
profound.
Yeah.
It was just like everything that alcohol used to do to calm the nerves, this stuff was doing to calm the nerves.
And that's the psychic change, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, and the book being so instrumental in doing that, I'm an advocate for the book. I always will be, and I don't think I ever want that to go away.
From hearing you speak at numerous meetings, whenever I hear you speak, I always know that you are speaking from the heart.
Heck yes.
Sometimes you hear people speak and they're speaking from their mind. They're thinking about what they're going to say and they arrange it in a certain way, and it can be effective and it can deliver a message. With other people, you could tell they're not really thinking much about it. They just speak from the heart. And it's whenever I do that, it's truth. And I tell you exactly what happened, exactly how I felt, and I get out of my own way and I just let it flow, And if it helps somebody, great, But you do deliver a very good message, and so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Oh.
It's like Rob's going to speak. Shh,
Right.
Quiet down, everyone. No, I'm kidding.
He's sitting here. He's shaking his
horrible.
head.
That's
I know it
horrible
is.
for my
I know.
ego.
I'm fucking with you though.
But I'm not, because that's exactly what I do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not ashamed of that. Because
I know, but I know how Rob feels because sometimes I've said shit at a meeting and people come up like, "Oh my God, that was such a great message." I'm like, "Well, no, not really."
Well, we talked.
You're like, it's not mine, man. I'm just relaying the
Right.
information that was taught to me.
There's the humility you
Yep.
gained.
Yep, that's great. That's
But
great.
I do think that there's some magic in that.
There is
where,
some.
I can't drink on the truth. I can only drink on a lie.
Yeah.
At some point, I've got to lie to myself. So I just think that if I stay grounded in that book, if we use our literature, that God's going to keep me safe and protected.
And we do recover.
One day at a time.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't often say it, but forced into a corner. If somebody said, "Are you a recovered alcoholic?" I would say, "I absolutely am."
Yep.
But I don't think I'm cured. I mean, the book is pretty clear
Right.
about it.
Yeah, it is.
There's a difference between recovered and recovered is like a return to wellness, to a useful state of mind and body. I still have alcoholism though.
Sure.
Absolutely. But as long as we're spiritually fit, our mind can't even take us there.
Yeah, and I can't even get spiritually fit. I've just got to submit to this thing. I've just got to spend my time trying to develop a relationship with God, and God takes care of all that stuff.
You know what's really interesting about what you just talked about, which was that you hadn't had a drink for months and months, and then you approached somebody and said, "If I don't get this spiritual thing, it's not going to work," is that a lot of people come in and they put the drink down, and it's a while before they realize that alcohol was just a symptom and that they really need that change. They don't know what it is. They don't know how to ask for it. They don't know how to describe it. I was like that. I didn't know what I needed. I knew I needed not to drink. And so once I accomplished that, I still needed more. And that's where the steps came in. Yep. And my sponsor said, "You got to start working the steps with me," And when I looked at the steps, I'm like, these aren't going to help me.
How can they possibly help?
Right, this isn't going to help me.
This is a book. So you just want me to you want me to write some stuff down and say some words.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, how's it going to fix this?
Back in the day, like, okay, well, if this was the answer, I could have just gone to Barnes & Noble and bought this book and read it, and I'd be fine.
Yep.
But the book is the map. It's the road map, you know what I mean? And the fellowship is like your fuel, and the meetings are, what you need to keep going. It's all a big package that works.
And to me, it's the foundation. So a lot of people will talk about mindfulness, or they'll talk about all these other things that are wonderful tools that we get to use in recovery. But I say, do the steps first. Have that psychic change. Have that foundation, and then go try anything else that you want. Because a lot of these other things that we hear are incredibly useful ideas, and they're useful to put into practice. But if I'm trying to do that before my alcoholism is treated, I just don't know that that's going to be successful.
Right.
It didn't appear to be successful to me. I know that we don't have any monopoly on this whole thing or, the right angle to God. But if we do the foundation first, then you can go off and you can try Zen and mindfulness and read this book and that book.
Much as
everything else.
Just like Bill Wilson did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, that is profound. So we've come to our end of our time, but Rob, it was so good to have you here, and I know your message is going to go out there and help a lot of people out there in the Glum Lot community. So we want to thank you, and until next time, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Rob.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.